Alright, so today I'm going to show you how to install a Xentec lighting system. It basically comes with 5 main parts. So you have your bulbs right here. Make sure not to touch that glass part on the bulb because the oil from your fingers can actually make it overheat and break. So make sure not to touch that. Then you have what's called the ballast right here, and it's got 2 connections that go into the bulb and then a red connection that actually plugs into this other cable right here. And so on this end of the connection we have one that plugs into the bulb, one that plugs into the ballast, and then this is a ground, so you just want to bolt that onto your frame somewhere. Usually use like an existing bolt, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. And then on the other end we have a few more cables. This is what actually plugs into your existing wiring harness, you know, that comes out of the back of your bulbs. And then it's the same kind of thing over here with these. This goes into your ballast, this goes into the bulb, and then that part goes into the ground, which is just bolted onto your frame. And then with your built-in fuse right here on your last cable, this just needs to be connected to the red of your battery, and that just gives power to the whole system. And then this can be secured somewhere on your frame where it's not going to bounce around or get wet or anything like that. And then the other side is just for the other headlight. And I'll show you how to install it all right now. Alright, so here's the original bulbs. You can see this is the connector that goes into the harness. And there's 2 filaments in there. There's one in the back and then there's one up front, and that's your high and low beams. So you can see that the HID bulbs also have the 2 filaments inside, and that they are also reflecting straight up into the housing just like the old bulbs are. So you're not going to have the same problem with reflection as they did with the old type of lights. With the old type of lights, it was just this part that was sitting straight into the housing, the reflector housing, and so the light would go out everywhere and blind everybody, and that's why they added this part. So the HID lights are much safer than they used to be. So this is what we mount into the car first. Then you plug this in and lock it. Alright, so this is aimed directly down into the back of the bulb. So I'm just going to reach in here and unplug it. Now it's unplugged, and I'm going to get rid of that dust cap just by pulling up on the bottom. And the whole dust cap comes loose. And then depends on what kind of bulb you have. Some of them twist out. This one has a little wire spring type thing that's in there. So I'm just going to unlatch it. And then the bulb comes out. This one just fell out. Try not to touch the glass of the bulb itself if you ever plan on reusing it. Then you can see that the bulb is right there. And then I'm going to save these just because, you know, the bulbs still have a lot of life left in them, and if I ever decide to switch back to my old system, it'd be nice to have these around. Kind of expensive little guys. Then I'm going to take my old housing, unlock it, and there's 3 little prongs on this thing right there, and those are all going to fit into their own little slots to keep it straight up and down. And then the little wire clip just goes right back in and holds it in place just like that. So it's being 100% securely held in. I'm going to take the dust boot, kind of wiggle that back onto place. Alright, got the dust boot on there, and I've kind of pressed it in the center there to make sure that it's come up, that it's sealed all the way around this end right here as well, so that no water or dust gets inside of there. Alright, so I took out my air filter box so I'd have a little more room to work with it. I'm going to go ahead and stick the bulb in there now. Alright. And now that is locked in place. Alright, so it doesn't look too pretty right now just because I'm testing it out. But basically I have everything plugged in right there. I have the ground that I showed you earlier just tapped in right next to the battery ground. And then I just took the line with the fuse in it, I just tacked it directly into the battery lead. And then on this end, I have, this is that main part coming in from the other side, where I have that guy plugged into just where the old headlight harness used to plug into the bulb. I just plugged it into that little guy. And then I came over here to this bulb, and I have the ground hooked in right here to the frame. And then I'm going to find a way to take the ballast and kind of mount it up underneath there once I have my air filter back in place. I took it out to give me more room to work with. But anyway, right now they're both on, super bright, super pleased with it. I'm going to go ahead and try the brights. Alright, so just a few quick little things. It probably took me about a half hour to get to this point. Right now I just need to get in there and clean up all the little wires and mount the ballast and everything like that. So take about a half hour and plan for that. There are quite a few different bulbs you can buy. It's kind of based off of a color spectrum. I would recommend that most people stick around a 5,000 or a 6,000, maybe 7,000. The more mid-range you stay, the more natural light it'll look like, which also works better in like rainstorms and stuff like that, because when the roads are wet, it's going to reflect more of the light back at you and not light up the road as much. So I recommend staying within there, as well as like the blue lights. Most people associate that with the being blinded. Like I mentioned before, it doesn't have, it reflects the light very well, so it's not, you know, being displayed all over the road and blinding drivers in the other lanes. That little reflective housing that it sits in is pretty beneficial. I got these lights off of Amazon. I'm going to link them in the video description below, along with any tools or anything else that you need. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments. I do respond regularly. Overall, it was a fun project. I'm pretty stoked with how it turned out. You can see my before and after pictures. Keep in mind that these bulbs are not legal in every state, so make sure you check your own state to see if the bulbs are legal, see if it's alright to have the HID bulbs installed in a car like yours. Another super important thing is that once these bulbs are installed, the light might reflect slightly differently, so it's very important to adjust your headlights so that the lights aren't reflecting either too high or like into another lane or something like that. And you can check your local laws and stuff like that to see exactly how high and how far the lights can spread. Other than that, it's a pretty simple operation. Most of it's just plug and play. All the little plugs can only fit in one spot, so it's not too rough. If you don't want to go through all the trouble of actually changing out your entire headlight system, you can get this cool stuff on Amazon that actually cleans the lenses of your headlights. Basically, you just put it on your headlight, rub it on, let it sit for a little bit, rub it off, and it cleans up your headlights really well. So I'll put a link for that in the video description below as well. It's probably going to end up being a little bit cheaper that way for you, especially if your local laws don't let you put in the HID headlights. Thanks for watching.